Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. At the end of August, so a couple of days ago, a couple of patriotic activists from Austria and Germany were entering the premises of the gas pipeline Nord Stream 2 terminal in northern Germany. That is in the town of Lubmin in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. They called for the opening of the pipeline Nord Stream 2 and they demanded an end to all these economic sanctions against Russia that in the end, of course, only hurt us here in Central Europe. They also demanded a referendum, a public vote on the continuation of these sanctions and of course, remigration. Yeah, the set of demands would really have been incomplete without the remigration part, of course. Now I want to take this activism as a starting point to discuss a little bit what is going on in Germany right now, how our political system is pretty much afraid of what's going to happen in autumn and winter and what is already happening in parts of Europe, especially in our eastern neighborhood. Before we get into that though, I want to thank once again all my supporters and my subscribers. Like, share and subscribe if you like this video, and also check me out on other social media platforms or consider making a donation to support my work via Patreon or Subscribestar. So it is quite interesting that even some of the mainstream media outlets were writing that they are activists and not extremists or criminals or something like that. But it was actually surprising that they choose the word activism here. Maybe the reason for that choice of words is that the patriotic side, the right wing, is not the only group in Germany that wants Nord Stream 2 to be opened again. But more about this later in the video. Now first I want to discuss how this was framed in the media. The mainstream media said that they were occupying or storming the terminal, which is also what the activists said they did. They actually said, we will do that. We will go in there, we will occupy it, and we will open the terminal. And they went in there with like a huge hex wrench over their shoulder as if they would just, open the pipe and then, open the valve and then the gas flows. Of course, I am no expert and I have never been at that site. I don't know if it is that straightforward, but I can hardly imagine that you go in there with a huge hex wrench and just open the valve. Anyway, but this is exactly the framing that was reproduced by a large part of our mainstream media, and that got even called out by far left outlets saying, oh, we shouldn't take over the framing of the right-wing people. Yeah, well, in this case they did, and they got a lot of attention for it, I think. The reality is, of course, that a couple of very courageous dudes just went there with their banner and with their fireworks, and they made a statement, and then they uploaded that video, and that was pretty much it. There was never any occupation or any storming. There was, if that shows anything, if this whole story reveals anything, that is that the infrastructure is completed. It could be opened if they wanted to. I mean, we can read in the news that the pipes are filled with gas already, and it is ready to go from a technological point of view at least. And it also showed that there is apparently not that much security there if a small group of people can go past the gates to film that video. But then the other very revealing thing is that a lot of law enforcement was activated, and they even searched with helicopters for these activists who were then disappearing in the forest. A couple of them were taken into custody, and they're facing charges now, of course. And we will see how this turns out. But bear in mind, there was no vandalism here that I know of. There was no violence. They just had this banner that they showed. It must have taken a couple of minutes from the looks of it. So I really wonder what the charges are. Trespassing, maybe? Anyway, at the same time, of course, we see that in Germany, all these self-declared environmentalists, they are now causing a lot of problems when they glue themselves to the interstate, or Autobahn as we call it. And now there was a case where they even entered a arts museum in Munich, and they glued themselves to the frame of a historic painting, damaging the frame in the process. And for the people who glue themselves to the Autobahns, at least, there was one trial and one verdict now, and that 20-year-old dude, I think, he was sentenced according to children's law, and it's like 60 hours of community work. So you see, these people who actually disrupt traffic and public life and cause a lot of problems, they get a slap on the wrist by the judges. When you think it is not a big deal to glue yourself to an autobahn or to a very busy street, you must bear in mind that the traffic jam could cause even ambulances not getting through to hospitals or patients, people being late for work and all these things. This is a mass disruption of public life, and it is potentially very dangerous when you think about ambulances, at least. But of course, double standards are not news anymore, not newsworthy, that is. But here, once again, it is very clear to see that when there are these cases of activism that are happening at the behest of the powers that be, then you see mild verdicts, understanding judges, and very favorable coverage by the media. And these people get invited into talk shows where they can explain their version of things, etc. When here, where there was zero damage being done to anybody, you have a whole army of officers searching for them and hunting after them, even with a helicopter. That is a little bit disproportional to the actual deed, if you even want to call it a deed, or more a incident maybe. Anyway, so to me that just communicates, it just shows that the regime is nervous. That's the bottom line verdict from my side here when it comes to this story. Moving on to the more interesting part, and that is that, as I said, both the left and the right in Germany are calling now for the same thing, and that is the opening of Nord Stream 2, because we have seen that our costs of living are going through the roofs and businesses are in danger. The framing from the official side is always, oh, just wear a pullover, it's fine. So their whole narrative is only targeting maybe welfare recipients or people who work in the public administration, so people who are not productive workers, people who don't contribute to the economic strength of Germany. Because if your money just comes from the state, sure, then just wear another pullover and you're fine. But what if your job actually depends on any form of production of goods? What if you're employed in the industry and then even in a energy intense branch of industry like steel or something like that, and your plant just shuts down? It actually happened already. Many steel plants have been shut down in Germany. These people will lose their jobs. I don't think they care about a couple of degrees that their apartment or house is colder this week. They will lose their livelihood. They will lose their income. Our country will be deindustrialized, and I think it is worth mentioning at least that the Communist Party in Germany, Die Linke, as much as I disagree with them, as much as I dislike them also historically where they're coming from, at least they're still calling that out, and at least they're still on the side of the German worker, it seems like, at least. And of course the AfD has said for a very long time that we shouldn't impose these boomerang sanctions that only come back and hurt us instead. It doesn't seem like these sanctions hurt Russia a lot, but they sure hurt Germans and the German economy. And once again, when I say it hurts the German economy, I don't mean the stockholders, I don't mean the bosses or the globalists or the people overseas who own these businesses in some cases. I mean family businesses, I mean the middle class, I mean the working class. They will lose their jobs, they will lose their businesses, and that will be disastrous for us. That will be the end of the backbone of the German economy, which is the Mittelstand. As I mentioned in a previous video, the regime is now preemptively framing this. They're preparing for autumn already. They're framing this as, oh, you are a friend of Putin, you are just a bot that is operated by the Kremlin, or you are an extreme right-winger. That is how they're already framing this, and that just shows that they're very nervous. So when we look at the Czech Republic, for example, in Prague, we have seen now a huge demonstration, 10,000 of people, they say. I would say you can double that, make it 100,000 people probably. that were demonstrating against this globalist Czech government, against the energy policy and the deindustrialization of the Czech Republic. Now, of course, in Germany we had protests of that size also in the summer of 2020. I covered that when it was against the health measures, but don't expect protests like that in the winter in Germany, because during the course of the last 2 years we have seen that the regime is using extreme violence to crack down on these large centralized protests. This is why Germans had to develop a more decentralized approach in also villages, small towns, and at multiple spots of large cities, because there are just not as many water cannons to go around in Germany to cover all these different places. They tried the big centralized protest in Berlin, and it ended down with the state cracking down on them, dispersing the crowd. And of course, people in the Czech Republic know that their government, their state, is not using the same tactics as they do in Germany here yet, and this is why they can still do these massive, big, centralized demonstrations in their capital. But it just goes to show how much potential for protest there is also in our neighborhood, and this time right now in September, early September, it'll start here. For tomorrow, Monday, in Leipzig, for example, many demonstrations are scheduled from the left, from the center, and from the right, and already our state is trying to play out one group against the other by demanding that they disavow this group and these people, and you cannot march alongside with these people. They're trying to play this game. But I really hope that the responsible people in the respective camps, that they realize what is at stake this time. This is not just another one of these little crises or these little symbolic gestures or something. In this winter, or let's say in the next year or in the couple of coming years, really we could face complete deindustrialization of Germany, and then we all lose. The left, the center, the right, it doesn't matter what party you vote for or something, then Germany will just collapse. And we all know what happens when our industry is no longer able to provide the state with the bounty that it has until now enjoyed. We know what these armies of military-age foreign people will do here when they don't get their monthly tribute payments anymore. A lot of people will say now that this is a good thing though, but well, I'm not so sure about that. So at the end, I still want to explain a slogan in German that they put out when they stormed and occupied the terminal in Lubmin. They said, "Gebt Gas oder wir geben Gas." So Gas geben in German means literally to give gas. And we normally say that, and it comes from driving a car. That's where this figure of speech comes from. We mean to hurry up or to get serious about something. It basically means put your foot on the gas pedal, speed up. So they said, you should hurry up, or you should get serious about it, or we will. And they were referring, of course, about what's coming in autumn and winter. These activists promised the regime a hot autumn and a hotter winter maybe. Alright, that's it from my side. Let me know what is going on in your countries. As always, I'm interested in your comments, and let me know what you think about the whole affair. Servus, Kameraden.